Ask and pray for us until that will of Son, Jesus Christus. That it may mercy upon us also and forgive us our sins. Amen. The Lord, honor and for the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, both now and ever. And what would it end? Amen. As forgot your name, I forgot your name. Yeah, so as she mentioned, my name is Jesus Andesión, I'm priest of St. Michael Ethiopian Orthodox Church in Englewood, New Jersey, right off the George Washington Bridge there. And I'm also the ecumenical officer for the Archdiocese under Buenos Petros. And lastly, I am on the board of directors of the Diocese of Buenos Petros as secretary of the New Jersey area. So I was asked, I met with a couple of you at the prayer service we had a few weeks ago, which is always a very nice event, and it's good to come together ecumenically and see, you know, the bishops from the Eastern and Oriental Orthodox churches celebrate together. It was a very special day that time because that was the last time we would have Cardinal, the current Cardinal, I forget his name, who was there for his last time. So it's kind of an affectionate moment, but anyway, I was asked to come today and talk to you about, in the Lenten season, to talk about penitent, being penitents from two particular standpoints. For me, I have talked on this subject, as you could imagine, quite a few times. And I decided to call this presentation Entering the Penitent State. One of the things we have to try to understand about penance, when we talk about penance, we have to try to understand what exactly are we doing. A tradition of spiritual renewal through the absence of pride and vainglory. That is an important thing to understand. Penance in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church involves prayer, fasting, almsgiving, serving as a means to seek forgiveness, purity of the soul, and foster a deeper connection with God, avoiding falling into the world's praise and acceptance. If we are Orthodox Christians, if we are believers in Orthodox Christianity, the main thing we want to do is follow. We are by nature followers. We are by nature's followers. We by nature want to be able to follow as best we can. And that following means the bishops, the priests, the deacons, the teachers of the church, the apostolic order. Too often in our world today, piety is individualized. You see it often. Oh, I'm gonna fast. You know, you might have a friend at school who might say, maybe there might be a whatever Christian denomination, and it might say, I'm doing a fast next few days because of this and that. And you might, how many people have ever heard that? You're someone that you know from another denomination said they're gonna be doing a fast. You've heard this before. One of the things that we need to understand is that is a very individualistic situation. In Orthodox Christianity, we're not interested in our individual circumstances when it comes to the sacramental life of the church. Penance even as well. Penance is, for us, spiritual. It is a holy calling. It has a significance the same as Holy Communion or matrimony, ordination, things of that nature. We'll get into, you'll see as we go along, you'll see why. The reason why we don't individualize it because we are the body, one body of the church. The church fasts and the church feasts. The church fasts and the church feasts. The church, if you need to have a fast for a certain situation, for example, I'm a father of confession for you, let's say, for example, and I said, you confess your sin. Then I said, well, you need to fast a few days and, fast for 7 days, and then I'll do absolution. Then you fast. as an individual. Not because you chose it as an individual, but because the church called you to it. You see, we follow. So there is an individual fast. But not like your friends at school who just decided on their own, but because the church called you to it. The church is always calling us to be united together as one person. So the church is the spiritual reality of each and every one of us. You'll see that as we move along, you'll see how we come to that. I'm just trying to just prepare you for where we're going with this point. If we decide that we want to feast, for example, we fast the hudade, or Abiyatson as we call it also. We fasted for the 55 days. After 55 days are over, then what do we have? What happens? Tensai, right? Tensai, then is the fast over? Is the fast over after Tensai? You can answer.
Yes.
Yes, it's okay, you can say yes. The fast is over. But what are we doing now after that? We are feasting. It's the feast of Tensai. And it goes on for how many days? 50 days. 50 days. Now let's say, for example, you decide along those 50 days that, you wanted to do a fast for some reason. Maybe you were having some troubles, or maybe you did some things you shouldn't have done, or said some things you shouldn't have done and hurt someone's feelings, and you decided on you wanted to fast, and it's still during the 50 days. It's only 10 days in. Would you do a fast? Would you do this? On your own? You should not do this. Matter of fact, if it's rare, and if a priest tells you to fast during the 50 days, she should be reprimanded because the church is feasting of the resurrection. How are you going to fast now? Like the Lord said, when the bride goes with you, when the bridegroom is with you, why would you fast, right? Why would you go to a wedding feast and fast? You go to a wedding feast and you're fasting, like, really? This is a wedding feast, why did you even come? So the resurrection, the Tensei, is the feast of feasts. It's the feast of feasts. So no, we don't, as a church, no, we do not fast. I mean, we take a complete engagement in the feasting. But again, I make this to give you a point of reference so that you can understand what we're talking about as we move along, because penance and the place that it has in our lives is structured for us so that we can have a life that's connected to the church and not our individual circumstances. Each of us have our own way and our circumstances as the church guides us. And potentially, we will be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish as spiritual creatures and also be a beacon of light to those around us. This is the engagement. Let's talk about pride. I'll read from St. Cyril. If the poison of pride is swelling up in you, turn to the Eucharist, and that bread, which is your God, humbling and distinguishing himself, will teach you humility. If the fervor of selfish greed rages in you, feed on this bread, and you will learn generosity. If the cold wind of coveting withers you, hasten to the bread of angels, and charity will come to blossom in your heart. If you feel the itch of intemperance, nourish yourself with the flesh and blood of Christ, who practiced heroic self-control during his earthly life. And you will become temperate. If you are lazy and sluggish about spiritual things, strengthen yourself with the heavenly food, and you will grow fervent. Lastly, if you feel scorched by the fervor of impurity, go to the banquet of the angels, and the spotless flesh of Christ will make you pure and chaste. You understand this writing from St. Cyril? He's telling us that the nature of pride and how it's going to block you. It's going to block you because someone's going to say to you, or you may say to yourself, I am unworthy. Let's do it for a large statement like that. I am unworthy to partake of the body and blood of Christ because I have impure thoughts, let's say, for example. To some people, that seems pious. Oh, that's a pious way to be. It's better to just go to the Kadasi and just don't do it and just stand in the back, or don't take the communion when it comes down because my thoughts were impure all week long, or something like that. That's just my thoughts, not something I did, but my thoughts. So I don't take communion. Does that seem like, do we call that pride? Some people think it's pious. Some people think it's a good idea. It's pious, it's respectful to the communion to not take it because I do you understand that that's pride? Do you understand that that is the epitome of pride? That is a very prideful person who actually believes that by some act of my own, I can make or break my partaking of the body and blood of Christ. So I'm separating myself from the church, using my own power, as if by some means, if you ever did take communion, how would you partake of it? You already took yourself out of it. How are you going to put yourself back into it? This is pride. Some people say, well, I'm too old, and someone told me that at this age you shouldn't partake. I know you've heard this before. That's not the teaching of the church. That is a tradition that might happen in places around, but our church teaches, the apostles teach us that we partake of the body and blood of Christ, as you heard Saint Cyril of Alexandria say. He gave you all of these reasons. If the poison of pride is swelling up in you, turn to the Eucharist. And that bread, which is your God humbling and distinguishing himself. So God is humbling himself for our benefit, even when we are not humble, even when we are in a deteriorated state. If the fever of selfish greed rages in us, feed on this bread. So you see, we have a place. We have a hope, and that is in the Eucharist. Saint Cyril of Alexandria is pointing us to that hope. During this fasting season, particularly Hudade, this is our opportunity to express our need to be less concerned about our pride and more concerned about our humble submission to the church and the church's life. We do that by, one, engaging to the church life. By one, talking to your father of confession. Talk to him. If you don't have a father of confession, talk to the priest. Get a father of confession as soon as you can. But talk to the priest. Do I talk to every priest about what's going on? No. Talk to the priest that you want to assign to that issue. And once you talk to him, that's the only priest you talk to about that issue. It's not social media. Every priest knows about what's going on. Yeah, I have some priests come to me and they say, Father, can I talk to you about something? Yes, go ahead. Let's make an appointment. And then they'll sit down and talk with me and they say so and so on, and they explain the situation. And if the first time I ask him, did you tell your father of confession about this? Oh, I have a father of confession. Oh, okay. We need to get a father of confession. Did you tell another priest about this or a bishop? Oh, yeah, I told Father, Cyril, or I told Father Ephraim. What did you told them all of these? Yeah, I told them all these things. So why are you telling me to? Why are you telling me to? Why are you doing? Oh, because I just wanted to make sure that. No. You see, this is pride. We think we can kind of own the process. It's subconscious. It's in the subconscious mind. We think we can own the process in some way. I understand the sense that, the more priest knows, the better, but that's not really what it is. You see, Satan wants us to preserve a prideful nature. He wants us to invest in a prideful nature. He wants us to take the rudiments of the church and wear them in a prideful way, like confessing to the priest, and to that priest, and to that priest. So now 5 priests knows the situation. Now which one is going to give you the answer? Which one are you going to follow? You cannot divide ourselves like that. This is the kind of pride that goes on because there's some sense that my actions and doing these things this way is going to help me. That's a pridefulness. Vainglory said you have to become temperate. Temperate, you know what that means, right? Temperate in the sense that he's speaking means that you have to be steady. You have to be steady. You have to be willing to stay still. And that's the point I'm making here. You have to be willing to be formed. If you are lazy and sluggish about spiritual things, you won't be formed. You're going to sleep late in the morning. You're not going to get up at 5:30 to be ready to do prayer at the first hour. What time is the first hour? Anybody know? Say it out loud. The first hour is when? 6 a.m. So during the tzom, we pray at the 6th hour. Why you sleep? Because I had to work late last night and I had to do homework and I need to get some kind of sleep. Well, get up during the tzom time, or the daytime, and you do the first hour prayer. To me, it's the most important prayer of the day. I don't have time to do a long one, but do a short one. Read a couple of Psalms, Our Father prayer, Virgin Mary prayer, Udasa Maria. Never not, I tell everyone, never go a day without Udasa Maria. We have Udasa Maria for how many days? How many days, how many Udasa Maria prayers we have? 1, 2, how many? 7. There's Udasa Maria for every day of the week for a reason. It will save your life. If you go each day only doing Udasa Maria, this will save your life. Angels will walk with you. Angels will walk with you. If you don't have Udasa Maria, get a Udasa Maria. But the point I'm trying to say is, when we are sluggish, we don't want to get up in the morning to do prayers, we don't want to do prostrations. How many prostrations did we do today? 40? How many prostrations did we have done today? We're supposed to do 41 prostrations at the first hour, 41 prostrations at the third hour. What time's the third hour? 9 a.m. 41 prostrations at the 6th hour, which is 12. The 9th hour, which is 3. The 11th hour, which is 5. And the 12th hour, which is 6 p.m. At each of those hours, there's a prayer that you can do. There's various prayer rules. And then you do 41 prostrations. So by now, you would have done 41 prostrations times 6. This is what you would have done by now. Was it 24/7? This is how many prostrations you would have done by today. That you would have done today. It's tzom time, and everybody here is young enough to do prostrations. I didn't do that many. I'll be honest with you, because I'm a working priest. I'm an architecture fellow across town there. But I do my prostrations in the morning, and I do what I can. But the point is, that's the mind. That's the line that we have. That's the goal we're trying to reach each day. Let's not forget we're talking about pride. Pride is the thing that's going to take us down. Pride is not just simply just being bold or being arrogant. Some people just measure pride like that. I'm trying to point out to you that pride is not simply just those things. Pride is every time you deny the benefits of the church, its attitude, its strengths, its opportunities. You are in a state of pride. The church doesn't seem to work for you. These things are provided for you to strengthen yourself with the things that are called the heavenly food. And if you take upon this heavenly food, you will grow. You will grow in a way that will make you as rich as the angels. As rich as the angels. And angels, if you're rich as one, and if you know about the angels, they don't walk around in vainglory, and they definitely don't have pride. Angels have great power. Angels stand in the midst of God. Angels stand at the footstool of God, at the throne seat of the Messiah, which is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But they don't have vainglory. Their pride is gone. It doesn't exist. They're subject to the church. They're subject to the faith. And the only thing that's being glorified is their God. Let's read what St. Isaac says. Flee vainglory, and you will be glorified. Fear pride. Fear pride. And you will be magnified, for pomposity has not been assigned for the sons of men, nor haughtiness to the offspring of women. You know pomposity, pompous, being pompous. Being, pompous, like a person who's just full of themselves. Just, it's all about me, You know somebody like that, right? Pomposity. We don't get into that kind of haughtiness to the offspring, nor haughtiness to the offspring of women. If you have voluntarily renounced all things in this life, by no means quarrel with any man over anything at all. If you have come to detest praise, avoid those who chase after glory. Avoid the acquisitive, even as you would acquisition. Keep yourself away from the wanton, even as you would from wantonness. Avoid the intemperate, here's that word again, even as you would intemperance. For if even the memory of the people mentioned troubles our thoughts, how much more will the sight of them and the life conducted by them draw nigh to the righteous, and through them will come near to God. Associate with those who have humility, and you will learn their ways. If the mere sight of those here mentioned is beneficial, how much more the example of their lives and instruction of their mouths? Now that's a lot. That's a lot to digest from St. Cyril. But the way I want to talk about this, I want to talk about it in simple terms, right? We'll talk about it in simple terms. And avoid the intemperate, even as you would intemperance. We don't want to be steady because that situation is steady. That situation is guiding me. What situation is guiding you in this world? Decide in your mind. Which situation is the one that's guiding you the most? There's a situation that everybody's following over there because that's what success is all about. The situation is following you over there because that's how most money is getting made. The situation over there because that's what just about everybody is that's my age. And that's what we're doing. You follow me on this? The kind of music, the kind of life, the kind of way of dressing. Well, I'm going to wear these kind of clothes because that's what everybody wears. So it's not so much that you're wearing the clothes, it's that you're thinking that that's the right thing to do. Not because somebody said it was right, but because you believe it is. Why? Because that's what everybody does. He called it intemperate, even as you would intemperance. Intemperance is to go ahead and do it. We don't want to be like that. We don't want to be like that. And as young people, this is a good subject for you because that's a normal way to be, just social creatures. Young people your age are social creatures. That's the way it is. Wearing hairstyles or wearing clothing or jewelry or of social media behavior and things like that. Places to go, places we don't go, ways of talking, foods that we eat, and so on, the time we spend. These are the kinds of things that young people are engaged in most of the time. These are engaged in most of the time because it's part of what it means to be a young person in the world. So then what are we going to do? Avoid the acquisitive, even as you would acquisition. Acquisitive, you know what that, the acquisitive is those who are seeking after things that you're not seeking after. You're not seeking after that. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm not seeking after trying to become more and more of what the world wants me to be. So why am I seeking after that? Well, because I've decided in my own mind that everybody over there, the things that are part of what it means to be my age and in my life, that's what everybody's doing. So the acquisitive, in this sense, is a means of acceptance. I want to be a part of that because I want to make it in the world or accomplish this thing. I don't know the way, but we have it in your head. This is being distinguished with acquisition, obtaining. How we obtain things through this manner of behavior, this manner of acceptance, this manner of, going about. We have to keep ourselves away from this wanting these things, wanting to be in these certain situations. It makes us feel proud, because, there used to be a song when I was growing up, and it was called In Crowd. I'm in with the in crowd. I go where the in crowd go. You ever heard this song? I'm in with the in crowd. I go where the in crowd go. And the song is singing about how happy the person is because I'm accepted in the in crowd. And the whole song was about that. When I was in high school, I was a popular guy. I was senior class president, student council president as a junior. I was the first junior to be student council president in the school. And then I won again as a senior. And I was on the track team. And, everybody liked me. I liked that. I enjoyed that. I like walking around the school and everybody knowing that I'm an important kid. I'm an important person in school. The principal would call me in the hallway and say, come in his office, he wants to have lunch with me. I'd have a lunch with the school principal. School principal come into my drafting class and in front of everybody says, this is one of my favorite students, I felt so good. I felt good about that, to be smart and be good looking and to be important, to be into sports and be popular is great. But that's what I'm saying as part of being young. But here's the thing I did not have. I did not have a space like this. I did not have a space like this to take me out of that vainglory. I didn't have a space to teach me. Even if I didn't listen all that much, but to teach me, to show me. And particularly not in the way you're being shown in this particular space. This is the space that's going to take you where you need to go. Not the vainglory that I had it to experience. Now, I will say that I did have a lot of mentors that were important men, and they were spiritual men. And they helped me a lot, and they kept my head together, yeah. But the point is, this is the better space, because this space is showing you how to exist in a world that wants you to be to be intemperate, even as you would be intemperance. It wants you to be wanton. It wants you to be subjected. It wants you to feel proud of yourself. It wants you to feel justified. Here's the last thing I'll mention on this. Justification also comes when we have, vainglory also comes when we have situations like, well, I run track. And so I have a track meet next in the morning, so I can't go to the service for Hosanna because I'm gonna be at the track meet in Trenton. I gotta run that morning, so I cannot go to church for Hosanna. Otherwise, I won't. Then that's the pin relays. Pin relays is big. That's how you qualify for the Olympics. Depending on how you turn out in that race. Can you imagine that? I'm a serious track runner, and I made it to the pin relays finally. Just so you know, I was a very good track. I ran track very well, but I never made it to the pin relays. My sister made it twice. I never made it once, and I was very good. That's how important it is. Now here I finally made it, and guess what? The track meet is on the morning of Hosanna. What should I do? Finally made it. If I do good, if I get bronze even, I can still be considered probably, maybe not for the Olympic tryouts or nothing like that, but at least I get the colleges looking at me. Even if I got a bronze medal. Some students my age would say, I'm going to do that. Therein is the vainglory. You stayed away from the Hosanna service. Hosanna in the highest. You stayed away from that. This is vainglory. So we have to be conscious of these things because vainglory are things that's going to happen. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to you at that age and in that life. These things are going to happen to you. But this is spaces like this is to help to teach you, to show you, to encourage you, so you can see what it is that you're doing and you can make better choices. It's not to say you're a bad person because I may choose to go to the track meet. But if you do choose it, it's because you know what it is that you chose. You don't want to choose anything that's happening with your life where the church has not given you that benefit. That's the round of the whole matter of vainglory, as you heard from St. Cyril, from the reading of our St. Cyril, the St. Isaac the Syrian. We have to be very conscious of these things. Your choices have to be motivated by the church life, by the church's strength, by the church's intention, by the church's love for you, so that you can prosper. And don't be afraid that you won't make it into a college of your choice running track. Trust that the church will find another way for you. Core practices of penance. Learn the difference between feeling guilty and embarrassment. Let's talk about that. Now, penance comes to us, we talked about those two principles, but these are going to be some of the byproducts that breaks the situation down for us. Now, sometimes we feel guilty about doing something. I did this thing, and this is terrible. I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have did that. If somebody found out I did that, I don't know what I would do, right? And you feel very, very bad about it. What do you do? I'm not going to go to church because, I'm a hypocrite. I can't go to church because I did that thing. And I'm not going to tell anybody about it because, I can't put that word to words. Blah, 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 right? You can go on and on. That's a feeling of guilt, right? That's embarrassment. Is that penance, though? Crying because I'm embarrassed because I did that. Why would I do that? And you're crying to yourself somewhere. Is that penance? Staying away from church, staying away from the Father of Confession, staying away from friends and family, depending on how bad it is, right? And you're just broken because of that situation. Something I said, or something I did, or a combination of things, people I was with, or anything, right? That puts you in that state, right? Is that brokenheartedness? Is that tears, those tears of a penitent heart? The answer is no. No. Do I need to go back to the beginning of the talk? The only way you can feel and know that penance, that you're beginning to interstate of penance, is when you have realized after the embarrassment, after the guilt, something came to your mind. That with all of that, I didn't even consider that this behavior, this thing I said and or did, separated me from who? God. This behavior separated me from God. I'm not going to church. I don't want to take communion. I don't want to talk to the priest. You see what happened? It separated me from God. That's penance. The tears are penitent tears not because I'm guilty. You're already guilty. The devil is guilty. He doesn't cry about it though. It's not because I'm embarrassed. I don't care about being embarrassed anymore. Once I realized that thing separated me from God, don't care who knows. I don't care about embarrassment anymore because I was separated from God. I need to be reconnected to God. Who cares about embarrassment when I don't have God? I have made myself an enemy of His. I don't mind the embarrassment now that I've come to that understanding. I don't mind the guilt now that I've come to understanding. I'll accept the guilt. I'll accept the embarrassment. You can laugh at me all you want. You can write my name in the newspapers and shout my name to the rooftops and how bad of a person I am. I get it. But you know what bothers me more than all of that? That I separated myself from God. That's my tears. That's penance. Once we get there, once you've gotten there, that's when you know you have reached penance. This is an important thing to understand. This has to be understood because that is where it all finds its home. This is when you begin to and strengthen in your power. This is when God says, that's my son. That's my child. That's when God says, when he sees you get to that point, when he sees you've gotten your life to that point, when he sees that you're feeling in that way, that you separate, God says, that's my child. Fight. That's my child. My child doesn't care that, oh, yeah, what you did. The devil does these things all the time. But my child has become aware that he's my child. And he wants to be back with his parent. Don't you want your child to be back with you if your child left you? You want your child back. And if you see your son coming, you're going to go screaming, you're going to trip over yourself, running down the street to grab your son. You're going to do the same thing if you saw your son after he disappeared. And all of a sudden, here he comes. You're going to trip over yourself when you see your son coming. When God sees you coming, because you see that you separate yourself from him, he's going to open his heart and raise you up. So don't be afraid. God loves every one of us, and he provides you with the faith of the church so that you can have a sacramental life that will bring you closer and closer and closer to him. The power of prayer is one of the rudiments that we're going to use to get closer and closer to God. Vainglory is not going to get us there. Pride is not going to get us there. Embarrassment is not going to get us there. Only thing that's going to get us there is prayer. Prayer serves as the profound means of seeking forgiveness, enabling individuals to connect deeply with God. Ethiopian Orthodox tradition emphasizes humble supplication as a vital component of spiritual renewal. Supplication. Humble supplication. Ethiopian Orthodox Church has so much connective teachings to supplication that we have 2 liturgical seasons called supplication. You know those? We have 2 seasons. One in the spring and one in the winter. A whole liturgical season. 2 liturgical seasons. We have to be willing to raise our hands up to God and pray. And never be afraid to pray, particularly when it's our souls that are at stake and our lives. Because the world does not want you to pray. The world wants you to be more afraid of what you're losing in your life in regards to the spiritual existence than what you gain in spiritual existence by praying, engaging the life of the church. So therefore, we have things that we need to do. We need things we can do, starting with prayer. Liturgies, anaphoras, right? Praying the Mizbah, the Psalms. And all of these things, the rudiments of the church, guides you and strengthens you so that you can become less and less prideful, less and less vain, and more engaged. So the church is the thing that's strengthening you. The church in its movement is moving you. And the benefit you have in this world is being bestowed upon you. And people around you say, how is this person accomplishing all of this without doing the things that we're doing? Well, I'm depending on the church, and the church is providing it for me. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it should, and I shouldn't be having that, but I'm getting it. Some things I've gotten in this world that I didn't think I was going to get. Particularly once I found the church and understood that I have to live the life of the church. I lost friends. Yes. I lost associations. I lost, things like that. Social spaces got switched out, right? And what became more and more, I found myself sitting with bishops and sitting with deacons and sitting with priests, as you heard early in this talk. Find yourself close to these things. When you find yourself in spaces such as the one you're in right now you know you're in the right place. The more and more you find yourself in spaces like this, the more and more you know you're moving away from vainglory, and you're moving away from pride, and you're moving more and more closer to a penitent life. A life that's going to be filled with the richness of God. All we need to do is allow the life that the church to engage you. Prayer is an open opportunity to bring you there. And you can rest assured that you can get there with prayer. Confession. We all can confess. Now these are you can see where I'm at now. These are all of the means by which the church can engage you. Seeking absolution and forgiveness is important. It's important at every age. People say, a 9-year-old doesn't need to confess his sin. Yes, he does. 5-year-olds. And if a child can talk, you ever heard of a small child lie? Who ever know a small child tell a lie? You ever seen a small child lie? They lie all the time. It's amazing. They make up these stories. Sometimes I hear something, I'm like, how is it that they so contrive it? They contrive these thoughts. That's almost like wicked, really. It's like, how does they do it? You have to take the child, right, and take him to the priest. Sit him down. He might not even know what confession is. Sit him down. Sit the priest. He keeps telling stories. Just talk to him. He keeps making up stories. Just teach him. He doesn't know confession, but teach him, because you tell the priest what he's been doing. And the priest will talk to the boy or the girl, whichever it is. Remember these things when you're in your own children. You do this, and the priest will guide him. And guess what's going to happen as he grows, as the priest, with a parent doing this, he's going to learn to talk to the priest, engage the priest. So my mind is thinking the wrong thing, when my life is doing the wrong thing, when I'm hanging with the wrong people, I go and speak to the priest. I go to seek confession when I am sick, spiritually sick. What happens if I do this terrible sin? What happens if I do this terrible sin? I did this terrible sin, I can take it. And yes, you can. What you have to do is you have to come to the church. You have to go to the Father of confession and you confess your sins. I can't tell them about those things. It's too terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. The priest is going to look at me as if I'm crazy. Why would I do something like that? What if you tell somebody else? If that happens, I'm sorry about that. That should never happen. But that's not a fear that you should have. The main fear is that you separate yourself from God, remember? So, confess to sin. How do you do that? You go to the priest and you confess it. And like I tell my confession children, when you come to the priest to confess, I don't want to hear, you don't have to tell me a whole lot of stuff, what happened was, and I met the person, we went over there and I opened the door, and then I don't need that story. I don't need all of those details. That's what's embarrassing. I don't need to hear the details. That's not confession, anyway. If you want to tell me those things, if you want to tell the priest those things, you're free to say anything you want. You can talk to the priest about anything you want. Confession is this. Let's say I did fornication. I sit down with the priest. Okay, he does the prayer to start, and then Father, I committed fornication. How long does that take? Just 1 second. A confession, I'm done. I'm a married man. In this case, here's another case. I'm a married man. I sit down with the priest. Father, I committed adultery. How long does that take? I just confessed adultery. I'm done. Now, I don't need to say, I met this lady at work, and then we went over to Starbucks, and then that whole story and that whole motel, you don't need that story. That's not confession. That's what happened. That's a story about the situation. You can talk about that if you want to, but that's not confession. Here's another one. Father, does the prayer, sit down. Father, I killed 4 people. You're done. Confession's over. You killed 4 people and you confessed it. What other confession can you say? It's over. The confession is finished. It takes a second. Say what you did. Father, I lied. Father, I committed murder. Father, I committed adultery. Father, I committed fornication. Father, I'm having impure thoughts. You have to say, I'm having impure thoughts about, and give all these kind of gory details. You don't have to say that. I'm having impure thoughts. He gets that. I'm human too. I understand. And when you confess it from your heart. Don't be afraid to say, I'm having impure thoughts. Then the confession is over. Sometimes only answer what the Father asks you. The Father might say, okay, you want to talk about the impure thoughts in some detail? You might say no. You can say no to that. That doesn't mean your confession is still done. You just decide not to talk about it today. Then the Father might say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put you on penance for a little while. For the next 3 weeks, I want you to do this, that, and the other. And then at the end, I'm going to do a counseling session, okay? And then we try to see how we're going to do absolution. And then you go. That's how it works. So that whole confession session takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I dealt with murder, I dealt with adultery, I dealt with all those things. In 15 minutes, it can be done. Youth Orthodox Church confession is vital for spiritual cleansing. It's vital. Some people are not taking communion because they don't want to do confession. You want to do confession? You can't take communion. Particularly if you have these things I just named, particularly major sins like that. Small sins like you told a lie, or you took something you shouldn't have took, or you filled out an application with the fake information. Don't do that. Confess that too. But that's not up there with adultery and murder, okay? That's a different kind of thing. And you know, there has everything handled at the level that they are. But confess your sins. These things reconcile your relationship with God. You see that statement right there? And fosters personal spiritual growth. This is where we're at here. Personal spiritual growth. You begin to grow spiritually. This is what's important. Each of us have to grow, and if we don't want to grow, then you're not going to be able to live in this life as a faithful person. People who claim to have faith but don't want to grow, you're just playing games. It's not working. It's not working. That's, again, you're back to pride. I'm back at the rudiment to this whole point. You're back to pride, right? These are the things that's going to get you out of that. These are the things that are going to get you out of that pride, out of that situation. These are the things that the church is providing for you so that you can get up every day and live the life of the church. Almsgiving as penance, demonstrating charity through generosity. Each of us have to give. Each of us have to give. Don't keep everything in your pocket. Give it away. Some people say, oh, the man keeps bothering me. Give it away. The man keeps bothering me. Sometimes you don't want to give because, I know you're going to take it and buy drugs with it. You probably think that a lot. I think that too sometimes. It's like, if I give you this money, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go and buy some drug or something like this. I was in 3rd Avenue in my office, and I went into the store. I went to go get something out of the store there, and the one lady was standing outside the store, and she didn't ask me. She kept looking at me. I said, what's the matter? I'm hungry. I said, okay, come with me in the store. She went me in the store. And this one of those stores that had, with a hot table, had all the food, and it had really beautiful food. I didn't buy it, but it had beautiful food, chicken and fried chicken and stewed chicken and noodles and all kinds of stuff, all on the table, fresh, and fruits and vegetables and everything in this store. Beautiful store. So I told her, I said, get anything you want. I said, she looked around, I said, get anything you want, I'll pay for it. I said, over here. I sat down, pulled up my phone, and was working. So I said, go ahead, get what you want to get. And she went and got what she wanted, and she came to the counter. I said, this is all you want? I said, get something else. She said, no. I said, get something else, come on. So she went, she came back. You know what she bought? She bought so many packages of cakes, and some shaped potato chips, and a couple of sodas and stuff like that. I said to her, why don't you go get some food? Oh, because this is what I eat this. Because she's used to eating Twinkies and candy bars and potato chips. She wasn't used to eating the food. Now, I experienced this another time before when we give out food. My parish, we go and give out food in Patterson, in this area in Patterson, and then people throw up. Sometimes they throw. I don't know if you've ever seen that happen. You give the food to the poor person, incidentally they throw it on the ground. I don't know if you've seen that. Why do they throw it on the ground? Because their stomach can't take it. They're used to eating like candy bars, potato chips, pretzels, candy, and stuff like that. Junk. If you give them hot, like a good meal, they can't eat it. But the point I'm saying is why I'm using this detail is it shows you the severity of the condition that people are in and how we can help people lift people out of their circumstances. And when we lift people out of this circumstance, we lift ourselves up spiritually. Ethiopian Church teaches this. Abuna Petros, the Archbishop, he had a wonderful program, still has a wonderful program where we collect money for the poor in various different ways. And, we did a program on Zoom. I don't know if anybody came up to it last year. And we collected so much money. And the money went to an area in Ethiopia, and it's a whole story with that. But the people were so happy. People were so happy to get that help that came from the United States. And by the time I converted into Burn, it was really an awesome amount of money. So and the thing about it is everybody benefits. Everybody wins. When we give, we give. We give without holding back, like the widow's mite. The widow's mite. You know the widow's mite? You know about the widow's mite? Raise your hand if you know about the widow's mite. The widow's mite. Here's the widow's mite. The widow, everybody's going into the temple, right? And it's the Passover. And this is the time when you give your alms to the church. You give your alms. So everybody walks up, and all of the richer guys with their robes and their nannies and butlers with them, and they had their sacks of gold and money, and they throw it into the bin there, the collector, and then they keep walking, and everybody's going. And Christ is walking up too, and he's standing on the side with his disciples. And here's a lady who walked up, and she had one mite. And she threw the mite into the treasury. And the Christ saw that. He said, "Did you see that?" They said, "Yes, Master, we saw it. We saw that." She gave more than anybody else because she gave out of her poverty. You see what she gave? The men who were giving bags of gold, let's say, he gave $10,000 worth of gold, but he got $1 million worth of gold left in the bank. And the same with this other guy, and the same with the other one. But here's a woman who only has a mite. And she gave the mite. And guess how much she had left? Nothing. She had nothing enough to have to get dinner that night. She gave everything she had. Not him. He gave a lot of money, but didn't give everything. So he said she gave more than anybody else. This is how God wants to reward you. Don't worry about how much we're giving. Give to the fullness of your heart, is the point. And that's the point of this is the woman gave out of the fullness of her heart. It's not so much that she gave everything, but why she gave everything, what is at the root of her giving everything? She gave out of the fullness of her heart. Her heart was not willing to hold back anything that she was able to give. She was able to give the mite, which was everything. You're able to give something, give it. Somebody must say, "Why are you giving all of that? That's for the church." Don't listen to this. You give. You give what you can give by the strength of your heart. Don't give out of stinginess, like oh, that's enough. Give whatever your heart say is good to give. Give out of the strength of your heart. This emphasizes the importance of supporting the less fortunate and nurturing one's spiritual growth. This is again how we're building on the spiritual life. So now we come down to the end of what this whole thing comes down to. What does it come down to? Where are we at here? Repentance and transformation. When we enter into the penitent state, we begin to transform. Church begins to shape us and mold us. in all kinds of ways, starting as little children. Teach a little child to come into the church and raise his hands up to God. If you keep teaching him, if you keep showing him, if you keep pushing him, he will eventually wind up become a deacon. If you keep pushing him, if you keep teaching him, one day he becomes, give him a wonderful wife, and then maybe even a priest, talking to a group of young people in Manhattan. It's possible. This is the trend. This is the formation. What happens? This is what happens when we give your life to the church. One thing is for certain, the church is going to always be there to lift you up and strengthen you in your transformative state. This is the state of penitence. This is the state of entering into a penitent state. The church begins to engage you. The church begins to grow you. The church begins to move you forward in life. The church turns you into her daughter. The church turns you into a vessel of righteousness. Instead of somebody walking the street with excuses about why I can't do this and why I can't do that. So we're going to enter into the discussion now, but I'll say one word before that. Every situation is always not going to be acceptable in our hearts. And our transformation, as we enter into a penitent state, as we merge out of vainglory and pride and begin to engage the faith and engage the resources of the church, engage in spiritual richness, and it begins to form us and shape us into the things I just pointed out. This is the situation that we find ourselves in if we do these things, but at the same time, we might not agree with everything along the way. We'll have our fights and our battles along the way. We'll have people who try to, show us a different opportunity and a different way to go along the way. Even if it's a parent or an uncle or an aunt or a friend. No one is trying to hurt us. People may not see the insignificance of the life that you're trying to live and the place you're trying to go. So with that, that's my presentation. So I want to open the floor for discussion. I don't know how you want to do it, but.
Thank you so much, Assis.
So how we're going to do this is how we always do it, and even if you guys have questions, you can raise your hands and I'll give you the mic and you ask your question. There's also a few discussion questions we have over there. So if people have questions they want to ask in the middle of the discussion or just right now, feel free to just call up. So I'll just start off with you have questions?
Yeah.
Awesome, there you go.
The question I had is, what's the difference between pride and vainglory? Like, I guess the exact difference isn't too clear to me. They feel very similar, but obviously they have to be different things since we're using to describe different aspects.
Yes. Let's emphasize that, because if that's a confusion, pride is pride. We went through each one of those. I described pride, we saw vainglory. Pride comes to us when we think we can accomplish something. Period. I can do it. You don't need the church. You don't need the Bible. You don't need God. You just need to get down and do it, right? You need to get up and just get down and study harder and get better at it. We can smart our way out of it. We can smart our way into it, or smart our way out of it. Pride. Remember, this talk is designed for church people that are already in the church. I'm not talking about pride. If I use pride in describing it to people who are not where you all are, I have to talk about it differently. I'm talking about it from the standpoint of that we're in the safe space already. We're already in the church. Everybody's baptized, right? We're already in the church. So this is pride for those, how we describe pride as it regards those who are in the church. We cannot be like that. We cannot expect as baptized people who are people of orthodoxy, to accomplish our own end. We're not capable of that. You're not capable of that. The church is capable of that only. Engage the church. Vainglory, again, we're talking to people within the church, is when we think that by some aspect of our efforts, we are deserving of something, right? Or like I used some of the examples before. If we're talking from the standpoint of the church, because I can do the chant, let's say, for example, I deserve to be a deacon. Or because, my father's a priest, I deserve to be a priest also. This is kind of a vainglory. Or because, I did this sin, I'm not going to talk to anybody about it because I don't feel safe talking about it. That's that's kind of a vainglory, because you feel like by my own means, I can stand in a higher space. So I can stand in a space to achieve an accolade or achieve an accomplishment or achieve something. So it's just, one is about more like what I feel a transactional relationship with the church. A transactional relationship with the church versus pride, which is just a sort of an enclosed personal transactional situation. More personal, one is more transactional with the church, one is more transactional with the person. Pride and vainglory.
So would you say vainglory is obsession with how people see you?
Yes.
Pride is how you see yourself?
That's how you see yourself. And you see yourself in some great light. You know, you feel you've already applied a great light to yourself. You know, you already put the water on top, you crowned your own head. You know, and the vainglory is when you expect someone to crown you. And you better do it because I deserve it. That's a vainglory. You have a thing in you that says that, you know, and maybe this is overexpressive, but to try to make the point, you know, I should be crowned. You know, I deserve to be crowned, right? And then one says that, you know, I'll just crown myself. you know, pride and vainglory.
Just another question on that. So, I think you gave the example of somebody in high school running track.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an example of maybe somebody that's in school, or like college or working?
Say it again.
Do you have an example of, for example, that somebody that's working or somebody that's in college?
Okay. If we talk about, let's say from a working standpoint, you're an architect and you work for an architecture firm in New York City. You've always wanted to do that. You pushed your life through. God allowed you to make certain things happen in your life, and now you're working for this wonderful firm, and you've been there 15 years, 16, 17, 18, 19 years, and then the principal of the firm calls in and says he wants to make you an associate, like a partner. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna say yes, or you're gonna say no? Now, I said no, because I was Orthodox, I was a deacon, and I'm like, I don't know what that, if I became a partner, I would have to be tied to this man and tied to these other associates and the things that they do. I can't put my Orthodox, you know what I'm saying? I can't, it would be bad for me to go with that. Maybe I can start my own firm, but I cannot be associated with them. You see what I mentioned earlier in the talk? You don't want to be associated with people who are not where you are. It's not a safe space for me. In the work environment, then the answer to that will be no. I won't do that. That's like the track example. If it's a school example, if you have an exam, for example, I have a final exam and it's Hudade. It's a Hosanna. Let's use that. That seems even more critical. I'm in medical school and I gotta do my whatever exam, this important exam, and it's on the morning of Hosanna. I can't go to Hosanna. You know how big the celebration is. It's very important that I start Holy Week. What do you do? What do you do? You don't go. You don't take that exam. What? What are you talking? Here's what I'm trying to teach you. What's being taught here is that we have to, as Orthodox Christians, you have to look at your whole life. Like I'm telling the members right now. Look down the road at Holy Week, because that's where you're going. Don't start scheduling stuff during Holy Week. Why'd you schedule an exam on Hosanna? Don't schedule an exam on Hosanna. You have to be spiritually. You can't. Remember talking about sluggishness and laziness. You can't be so sluggish and lazy about your spirituality that you're not taking a spiritual intent. You got to be spiritually acute. You have to be on top of your spirituality. You have to look down the calendar and say, okay, where are we going to be for Hosanna? Because I know this exam is coming up around that time-ish. I'll make sure I don't schedule on that date. You got to be on top of it. You got to be on top of it. If we're lazy, you're not following the church calendar. You're just sort of going week by week, and then, next week is Hosanna. I got my exam that day. Well, you didn't think about that 3 months ago? No, because you're not following the church calendar. You're not paying attention to the church. You're not paying attention. This is the sluggishness that I talked about earlier. That's still your fault, so the answer is still no. Because you had a way out and you didn't plan. And now you kind of not go to Hosanna. No priest would say, okay, go ahead, take the exam. I would always say, no, I'd rather you not be a doctor than to miss Hosanna. Or have to wait another year to take that exam if that's what it means. no laziness.
Father, if you could go to the next slide.
Oh.
There's a Slido link. If anybody wants to ask anonymous questions, feel free to scan the Slido. But I'll give you guys like 2 seconds.
Go back to that?
Yeah, go back to that one. Yes.
Okay.
2 seconds for people to scan. And okay, we can go back to the discussion.
Okay, back to the discussion. Okay.
Yes. So I guess like if anybody, feel free to call out if you guys have any questions, but we can just, I can just go to the one that I feel, I don't know, I'm also curious. So the third question says, St. Silouan says, pride prevents the soul from even setting out on the path of faith. In what ways do you think pride distorts our faith, and how can self-examination restore this? We've sort of talked about this a little bit, but people can also feel free to answer
Yeah.
like, their
There's
perspectives.
a lot we can say on that.
Guess you can start from you.
You want to start from me?
Yes.
Well, you know, I've said a lot. I said a lot already. The point is that pride, like it says, prevents the soul from even setting out on the path. We kind of said that it holds you back. It's that temperance I was talking about. You want to be somewhere else instead. Want to be somewhere else instead. There is a somewhere else instead. When we talked last week about Kaddish, Kaddish was last week. When we talk about Kaddish in my talk last week, we talked about being formed. You know, God came down and took on flesh, right? Zoeda did. We say he who came down, right? That was the week before that. And then he said, we who came down. And what God come down to do? He came down to take on flesh. He took on the form of flesh. And then we say, and this was the next Sunday, which was last Sunday. Guess what took on form? The Holy Spirit wants to form us. The Holy Spirit wants to form us. It's the other Zoeda in my interpretation. It's a word that because the Holy Spirit takes on form, each of us taking on a shape. So each of us has to be willing to be formed. Each of us has to be willing to be made into something. And you're not going to get that if we're going to stand still. We're not willing to follow the things we need to follow. We follow these things because faith is the thing that's guiding us. The Virgin Mariam and her Kadanya Mehret, she had a faith, the faith that we want. When the angel Gabriel told her that she was with child, right? She believed it. She had a faith. Do we have that faith? She believed it. She didn't doubt. Look what she had to believe. She had to believe that this baby, you know, she never had a man. And you know, if you're a woman, you know you've never been with a man in any kind of way, right? But now there's a baby in there. So this angel said, I have a baby? It's no way. I've been in the monastery. I've been living in the temple. It's no way. I've never been no man that even touched me. I don't even know any man, right? So how is it a baby in here? Do you know she believed it? She believed that. What do you believe? If she can believe that, what do we believe? What do we believe? So the whole point here is that if we don't believe in the very thing that we stand for, what manner of faith are we then? What faith is happening in us? In what ways do we think pride distorts us? That is in itself a pride, because we don't want to give ourselves to the faith that we have. We don't want to give it away. I'm too sure of myself. When I found the church, I wasn't baptized in the church as a child. I found the church later on. And but I didn't want the church because in the beginning when I first found it, because I liked who I was. I liked my life. I was smart, and I gave you some earlier stuff about myself. I was smart, and I had a whole ideas about what I want to do in life, and I've always had that. I was one of those kind of people one of those kind of young guys that I know what I want to do in this life, and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do anything else, right? And then here comes, the Ethan Orthodox Church starts up in my life. Because I met a girl, and then I went to listen to another, and I'm like, I don't know, this is not what I was expecting. But when I began to look at it, I said, this is interesting, and I started listening to the teachers and listening to, people are talking to me, and I said, all right, this is interesting, but I'm happy with being who I am. I don't want to be I don't want to get involved in this because if I get involved in this, it's going to change me. That's what bothered me the most. Not that I didn't believe it. Oh, this is great. I'm like, nobody told me what Egypt Orthodox Church. And I was mad about that. But I said, if I get involved in this, it's going to change me. It's going to make me something that I don't even know what that's going to be. I'm scared of whatever that person's going to be. I don't know that person. I know the one I already am. So I didn't want to deal with it. I don't want to go down a road I don't understand. That person that's going to emerge out of that. You heard me say transformation. It's going to change me. I knew that much. But you see, the long story being what it is, you see what happened to me. I did do it, and it did change me. I became a priest. So exactly what I said is I should have done. It happened. But I knew it, but that's what kept me, that's what held me back. That's the pride. So every time, you'll see it every day. Every time something's trying to hold you back from the spiritual endeavor, no matter what it is, that's your pride. That's your pride at work. Fight that. Always push yourself and fight that. We have a lot you can add to this. I'm expecting everybody to add something to this part.
I guess something that was relevant was we had a discussion on Jonah's fast like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it showed how like Jonah was, I don't know if I could say prideful, but he was following his will when he didn't want to go to Nineveh, and but it was God's will that the people of Nineveh be saved from being destroyed, or the city from being destroyed. So he was following his will instead of God's will. But when he ended up following God's will after he spent time in the belly of the fish, the people were saved. So it's like pride can be like following our own will and not God's will. So that in everything that we do, the self-examination has to come from like, what does God want me to do, rather than like, what do I want to do? So.
I guess I can also add a little bit to that. Like, I guess pride comes from the understanding that we are sort of above everything and we are in charge or in control or are the result of whatever we have.
Exactly.
So this whole idea that we are above everything already gets rid of this idea that there is God that is above everything, that created everything, who is in charge of all, and we are in His mercy in everything we do and say. And so I guess that it sort of distorts that understanding of we're prideful, we're above everything, because now it's like faith requires you to now believe that there is a God, He created you, and you have to surrender to Him. So this idea of pride sort of gets rid of this surrender that we give to God, I guess, who illumines us. And Silouan in his verse, what he says after is, everybody must ask that God illumines them, their souls, their hearts, so that now God, seeing that sincerity in our hearts, can come and actually give us the right path, or take us to the right path that leads to Him. So I guess in that way that it distorts us from the right path.
Need to hear some more on this. Let's go. Let's engage.
Mine is a question, and it's kind of like related to number 2. So, do you have any like advice or some like practical things that we can do, especially like young people working and like seeking the next promotion or whatever, and kind of like that requires excellence, that requires like time, dedication. So kind of finding that balance between that and also, doing it.
That's very good. Because that's the challenge. And before we got to the discussion, that's part of the talk. You have to make choices. Vainglory. It is impossible to seek excellence without it. How could you seek excellence without it? You seek the glory. You can seek excellence. You can go for what you want in this life. God doesn't want you to be sad. God doesn't want you to be unhappy. God put you in this world to live. And you see young people like yourselves, be young, enjoy being young. No matter how long you live, you're going to be old the longest. If you live to be 1,000 years old, most of it is old. So don't say I want to be 1,000, because 1,000 is 1,000 years of being old. While you're young, be young. Enjoy your youth. Enjoy it. God wants you to enjoy it. He wants you to be prosperous and fruitful at the same time. This is why He said, be fruitful and multiply. He could have said just multiply when he told to populate the world. He could have said just, okay, Adam, multiply. He said be fruitful. He said do two things. Be fruitful and what? Multiply. Do both of those. Don't just multiply. So the point is, yes, we can accomplish things. We can accomplish great things. We can accomplish excellence. But we don't want to feed vainglory on the way there. We don't want to sell the church out. We don't want to sell out our spirituality, forsake our spirituality for that accomplishment. Even if it means maybe not accomplishing that. There are people in this world who accomplish great things without the kinds of things that they would have had to have. Dr. Vivian Thomas, it's Black History Month still. Anybody remember Dr. Vivian Thomas? You know this story? Write it down. Dr. Vivian Thomas. I want you to look up that show and look at Mos Def, the rapper Mos Def? He played Dr. Vivian Thomas. It was the most, I tell you, that young man really did a good job a bang-up job on that show. Look up Dr. Vivian Thomas and watch that video. It's called Something the Lord Made, is the name of the movie. Something the Lord Made. Watch that show. And you're gonna learn something. Dr. Vivian Thomas was a pioneer in heart surgery here in the United States of America, African American. Pioneer. Trained other people around the world the techniques that he pioneered, that still people use today for heart surgery. Not only did he pioneer the procedures, the procedures he was coming up with, there wasn't even any tools. I mean, how the doctor he was working under was like, well, Vivian, we don't even have tools for that. He said, no, I got an old record player, and he set up like a mechanical engineer, and he also engineered the tools he needed to do to intubate and do all the things he needed to do to the heart surgery. He did all of that. Changed the whole world. Heart surgery is still being done today based on his techniques. He never finished college. Now, not medical school. He never finished college. He never finished college. That's what I'm talking about. How did he do that? And he was a black man too. And he was a doctor in John Hopkins. You know John Hopkins down in Maryland. That's a world-renowned medical center. His image is up in the hall. You're walking in the rotunda there. You see Dr. Vivian Thomas's image up in there. His image is up on the wall. A person who never went to college, went to medical school, got his face up on the wall in a racist country, black man, and talked he is responsible for teaching the whole world procedures of open heart surgery. So let's not, be careful. God will protect you. God will take you where you need to go. You have to be willing to trust. You have to be willing to live the life of the church. Some of us living in the United States don't want to do that. America teaches us to, think about success, right? Think about success. Coming from America, as an American, I've been to Ethiopia. And I'm gonna tell you something. That's the better way. I know that might seem old-fashioned because, you come from there or your parents come from there. And there's some sense of old-fashioned or some sense of, maybe this is better. But let me tell you something, I come from here, all the way back to the slave ship. So I can tell you, we've been here the whole time. So I can tell you this, having gone to Ethiopia as many times as I've gone, that's the better way. That's the better way. Ethiopia, people say this, Ethiopia knows the way. There's a reason why, and this answers your question, I hope. There's a reason why Ethiopia is the only nation in the world that's never been conquered by the West. Not just in Africa. The West conquered the whole world, from Japan to Australia to what we call the Western Hemisphere, the Americas. All of this was conquered by the West. You go to Australia, you got Europeans. You go down to New Zealand, you got the New Zealanders, they're the white people. But they're not New Zealanders. They conquered that area. They conquered the whole world, but Ethiopia was not conquered. Great Egypt. Egypt is so great. Pyramids, maybe the Martians built it. That's how great they are. People can't even believe the stuff that they did. How many times Egypt's been conquered? Can't even count on these two hands. Conquered. The great Israel. The temples of Solomon. Conquered. All has been conquered. Ethiopia, never been conquered. Why? What happened? What happened? How come the great Israel was conquered? The temple was destroyed, just like Christ said it would be. How come the great Egypt with the temples and the and the math and all of the things we can't even understand to this day. Why did it get conquered? How did it get conquered? Not once, not twice, not three, not four times. It just kept getting conquered and conquered and conquered till nobody can tell where Egypt began or where it ended. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm making a point of fact regarding history, not to place some people higher than others. It's not about pride, but that's why I'm mentioning this. It's not pride, it's God. God has a purpose for Egypt. God has a purpose for Israel. God has a purpose for Ethiopia. Each one of these things have a purpose. God's purpose is working in the world. It's not a bad thing that history went that way. It is God's will, and my belief, that it went that way. We have to understand our circumstances. So for you and your success in this world, vainglory is going to happen too, because you're not going to understand and relate to your situation as it should be in the eyes of God. And the same for each and every one of you. See yourself, each one of you see yourself as Ethiopia, and maybe you're Israel, maybe you're Egypt. Each one has its circumstances, and each one has had things happen to it so that the will of God can be done. And the will of God was done through all of these situations and all of these things. Let's expect God to work in our lives. And if you're expecting God to work in your life, then vainglory is going to be something that's going to be far from you.
Thank you. I can also add a little bit to that. I
Sure.
guess from my experience, I just started my career. And I don't know, it came up in a conversation with my confession father. And he was like, well, if you don't pray about your job, then you're gonna, you must be going on the route of becoming a nun, right? You have to pray about your job. Sometimes we all struggle sort of like, standing up for the work we do, especially like if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be humble, like humility is important and all of that. But it's different, right? When, for example, I, walk into a room and there's people in that room, they're presenting, and then I think, wow, like I could have done that so much better. That's prideful, right? Versus I'm given an opportunity to present, and I'm presenting, and I'm using that opportunity that God has given me, and for the glory of God, and I'm also working for my success in the world as I am living in the world. Those two are different things, right? That's when you need to be very wise about how you balance those two. I guess that's from my experience. Yeah. There was something I wanted to say, completely slipped my head, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Anything else on that? This young man here.
For number 2, something that comes to my mind is St. Paul in Colossians. He mentions, whatever you do as unto the Lord. And that's how I like to think about work. I'm doing it as unto the Lord. It's not necessarily for myself or for anyone, but it's unto God. And that motivates me to be excellent because I believe God is excellent. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
That's very good. That was very good.
That was actually,
And
yeah,
it was
following up to that.
short burst probably outdid everything I said even. That's wonderful.
Beautiful. Again, like you were saying, we do everything we do for the glory of God, right? And I guess that understanding of I have a job. This was given to me as an opportunity, and I'm presenting myself in my job as a Christian. As a Christian, I can't be lazy, right? Even that by itself should give you the motivation to succeed. Because now when somebody looks at you and you present yourself as an Orthodox Christian, then you must own up to that definition, right? What does it mean to be an Orthodox Christian? Of course, I can't be lazy because now they're going to associate Orthodox Christians with laziness, right?
Exactly.
So
Good.
even that understanding that everything you're doing is to present yourself, to live up to what it means to be a Christian, that applies to our jobs as well, even though it's in the world. So.
Very good, very good. Like it. Come on, let's get some more in here. Anyone put insight on this? This is a good discussion.
Question? Can we go back to that?
Oh, back to the question.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on number 3 about how pride prevents the soul from setting out on the path of faith. I think it was mentioned in some way or another within those answers, but I would say when I guess pride is repeated throughout your life for however long that may be, over time I think it blinds you, and more and more you kind of start seeing any form of success as you start attributing it to yourself. Like, I did this happened because I did this, etc., etc. And over time, that essentially, starts distorting like how you see everything, how you see your success, like where you are in life. Even the simple fact of being alive, I think, in a sense, you attribute it to randomness and just chance instead of glorifying, like thanking God for that blessing. And I think like this requires like constant self-examination because otherwise, I think especially in the modern world, like there's a lot of, especially with social media and other things, like a lot of things are optimized to kind of just look at ourselves and feel happy, like based on whatever things like the world says is successful. So if you're not constantly like self-examining, I think it's really easy to fall into like that pit of pride and to start attributing a lot of like everything good that happens in your life to things that you personally do instead of like the glory of God. So yeah, I just wanted to say my perspective.
Very good, very good. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's about another discussion.
Yeah, but each of us have to, that's very good, each of us have to engage life from a standpoint of our hope that we have in God. That's what's being said here. That's it. And everybody can add to that in some way, sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to focus on the fifth discussion point, how like the community can intentionally or unintentionally rather like cultivate the vainglory. So like I know a lot in our community, like who has the best or the biggest graduation party or the biggest wedding can sort of contribute to kind of the vainglory that we have in ourselves. We feel like we need to get praise from other people and be extravagant and just sort of, put on a show for not only ourselves, but just for other people. I think maybe you can, if you can respond, like, is a good way to battle this is to kind of start with yourself and maybe not insist upon having those things, and then hopefully having that mindset can kind of spread to other people, or like how do we change the culture? I mean, this is probably like a very open-ended question that everyone feels.
I think it's a reasonable question. I mean, we got into this early on, but that's what we want to do. We want to talk about it. The people around us, the community at large, people in our immediate environment, family, friends, see us in a certain light. They want us to have a parent, for example, wants you to have a nice wedding. I want my daughter to have, we gotta go to Ethiopia, we're gonna have the wedding dress made, I want to have like this, and then we're gonna come back, and we're gonna have the melts, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna have all the, I want 5 bridesmaids, I want the limos, and I want this. I'm using an example. What's wrong with that? If you have the money to spend on all of that, it's a lot of money, 30,000, people spend 30, 40, 50,000 on weddings, why not? Is it prideful? Yeah. Here's the thing. Is it vain? Oh, for certain. Anytime you see somebody in a really beautiful dress or a really beautiful outfit, there's some vanity going on. Would you agree with that? I mean, it has to be, because that's why they bought it. I have that nice car because I really like a nice car. There's a vanity there. But the point is, vainglory happens when we undermine the spiritual direction because of those things. In other words, I'm not going to do the wedding until I get enough money to do that. For example, you saw the growth pattern. You stunted the growth pattern. You let the $50,000 wedding stop you from getting married to the man that you love or the woman that you love. Or you let that stop you? Oh, I don't have the money for the dress yet, and I don't have the money for the food, and so we're gonna wait another 2 years. We're gonna work and save our money. Vainglory. Sorry. That's when vainglory is at work.
I just want to
Go
say
ahead.
we should
Go ahead.
probably wrap up in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
But any other questions that people have or any suggestions?
Does something happen?
Sorry?
Did something happen? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Okay.
Yes. You have a question?
I don't know, I was just gonna respond. Go ahead.
He had a question back there too.
Oh, you had a
The
question?
young man there, yeah. The young man right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Sorry, I didn't see you.
no worries. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what can we do? I think the season of Lent is a good example. Like humbling ourselves and fasting, that works on our heart posture. We're humbling ourselves before God. Yeah, I think fasting will help that.
Yeah, I think to respond to your point, like I think there are things like our community does that do cultivate vainglory, and I think they're so embedded in it that it's like I think people have lost sight that it is vainglory. There's like that saying, it's like if you're wearing rose-tinted glasses, even red flags look like a normal flag. It's just like you're so in it that it's hard to differentiate between something that's actually like a positive celebratory thing in which you're able to glorify God through that practice versus like something that's leans towards vainglory. Sometimes it's a gray area. I feel like whenever something is like a thin line or a gray area, it's probably bad. It's like how I see it. It's like a game you shouldn't play. But yeah, that was I kind of didn't answer your question, but that's my thoughts around it. Yeah.
I can add a little bit. I guess I don't know, in a secular perspective, it's very difficult to draw the line. That as Christians, we have a calling to live like Christians. And you'd be very surprised like how much it will, like your take on, how things are being, how people are carrying themselves, how vainglorious they're being, or, how you view a community and how it must act, will actually change other people's views. It all starts from us, right? From our hearts and how we view things, and how we view how things should be. My favorite quote by like Francis of Assisi is, if preach the gospel every day, if you need to, use words. So he's saying like live the gospel, right? And when you do that, people around you will inevitably be impacted. And that's it might not be immediate, obviously, right? It's not like, wow, like this person's not doing it, so we're not doing it. It's more like now you're leading them to the right path because now you're living the right path. And that has a lot of impact on other people. Because now it's like, oh, is there actually something wrong we're doing, right? So I guess like the direction a community goes really depends and starts from you. St. Paisios says that, like, when he says, I am the cause of every problem. So basically he's saying that I am responsible for this community acting this way. Obviously he's not, right? But he's saying I'm responsible for also them turning to God. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, that helps. But I guess.
Yeah, that helps because he's saying that you promote that bad behavior if you don't say anything or you promote it or you allow, like we talked earlier, following the group, you follow what everybody's doing. I'm doing it because that's what we do. When I talked earlier in the talk. When you follow what everybody's doing, then now you're a participant. You've given yourself to the circumstances. That's what it was saying. You have to not allow that. That's what he's saying. If you want to fix it, you have to say, no, I can't do it like that. Or like we were saying before, if a person wants to have a wonderful wedding with all those things, which is still as an example, then make sure it doesn't get in the way of the spiritual life. It doesn't undermine the spiritual life. The sacrament that it is. Marriage is a sacrament. Mm-hmm. Don't let it get in the way of the sacrament. Don't let it get in the way of the holiness. That's the priority. Don't let the gown and all of that becomes more important than the spiritual sacrament and the lifelong, the mystical oneness that you're going to become from that coming together. That you didn't even need all of that gown for. You could have walked in there just like what you have on right now, and it would have been enough. You can't let that get in the way. That's the point. Right. You can do it, but don't let it get in the way.
Okay. Any other last points? All right. Thank you so much. Obviously, we're end with prayer, but we have a hymn that we're going to do together.
Yes, go right ahead.
This was beautiful. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody